What's up, everybody? Nick Ridgewire back for the 10th inning with another edition of This Day in Sports History. In yesterday's episode, we saw a pair of former teammates both hit their 500th home run exactly 1 year apart when Eddie Matthews of the Houston Astros at the time would hit his, and then 1 year later, Hank Aaron of the Atlanta Braves would hit his. We don't have a pair of former teammates hitting their 500th home runs today, but we have some more Wimbledons to talk about. We have baseball's first no-hitter to talk about, and we have some golf to talk about. So if you all enjoy this video, leave a like on it. If you're new to the channel, you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. Let's get to it. This Day in Sports History. We start out today all the way back in 1815 in England. The first flat horse race would occur on Nottingham Hill. And we all know that would lead to a trend that would make horse races one of the most popular events throughout the next 3 decades especially, but really, move to Major League Baseball in 1876, you have baseball's first no-hitter as St. Louis's pitcher George Bradley would no-hit Hartford in a 2-0 victory. You know, stats are hard to come by from back then, so I'm not really sure if he had a walk on the day, but either way, his team had 8 errors on the day. So one, it was a miracle, it was miraculous that he held the opposing team to 0 runs. But again, I don't know if he had any walks that day. Either way, the errors took away the possibility of a perfect game, but George Bradley does have baseball's first credited no-hitter. 3 years later in 1879, we moved to Wimbledon on the men's side. John Hartley would defeat Ver St. Leger Gould 6-2, 6-4, 6-2 to win his first of 2 majors and first of back-to-back Wimbledon titles. And look at that, 1 year later, 1880, on the men's side, reigning champion John Hartley would defeat Herbert Lawford 6-2, 6-3, 6-2, 2-6, 6-3 in 5 sets to win his final major and his second consecutive Wimbledon. Stick with Wimbledon, but move up to 1884 on the men's side, make it 4 consecutive Wimbledon titles for William Renshaw after he would defeat Herbert Lawford 6-0, 6-4, 9-7. This would be his 4th of 7 majors and 7 Wimbledon titles. Stay with Wimbledon in 1895, but move to the women's side. Charlotte Cooper would defeat Helen Jackson 7-5, 8-6 to win her first of 5 Wimbledon single titles and first of 5 single majors. Now we go back to Major League Baseball in 1901. Christy Mathewson would throw his first no-hitter as a member of the New York Giants in a 5-0 win over the Cardinals. Again, stats are hard to come by back then. Christy Mathewson, a pitcher very much known for his control. May have been some errors in there, but may have been some walks as well. Either way, Mathewson would get his first of 2 no-hitters in his career. 11 years later, in 1912, we moved to the Olympics, and American Jim Thorpe would place in the top 4 in all 10 events of the decathlon for a record at that time of 8,413 points to win the decathlon gold medal at the Stockholm Olympics. Just like his other record, this one would end up being stripped in 1913 for playing pro baseball. However, these medals would be reinstated in 1982. Move up 1 decade to 1922, in golf at the US Open, Gene Sargent with a score of 8 over would win his first of 7 major titles, 1 stroke ahead of runners-up John Black and Bobby Jones. Speaking of Bobby Jones, 1 year later in the 1923 US Open, Jones would win with a score of 8 over, winning his first career major, defeating Bobby Cruikshank by 2 strokes in an 18-hole playoff to win his first of 13 overall majors and his first of 7 non-amateur majors. We stick with Bobby Jones, this time in 1927, but at the British Open, Jones with a score of 7 under would retain his title after defeating Fred Robson and Aubrey Boomer by 6 strokes. This would be the 4th of 7 non-amateur championships for Jones and his 7th of 13 overall championships. Now we move to France in 1928 at the 22nd edition of the Tour de France. Defending champion Nicolas France would hold the yellow jersey from start to finish, and his team would actually hold all 3 podium positions. But for France, this would be his 2nd of 2 Tour championships. We move back to golf now in 1932 at the LPGA Western Open. Jane Weiler would defeat June Beebe 5-4 to win her only major in her career. Stay with golf in 1945 at the PGA Championship. Byron Nelson would win his 5th and final major after defeating Sam Bird 4-3. Moved to 1961 at the British Open, Arnold Palmer, with a score of 4 under, would win his first of 2 consecutive Open championships, 1 stroke ahead of runner-up Guy Rees to win his 4th of 7 majors. Back to the Tour de France in 1962, defending champion Jacques Anquetil would win his 3rd Tour overall and his 2nd consecutive of 4. Back to the British Open in 1967, Roberto De Vicenzo, with a score of 10 under, would win his only major championship, 2 strokes ahead of runner-up and defending champion Jack Nicklaus. 3 years later, we have history in the making in 1970 when Denmark would defeat Italy 2-0 in the first World Female Soccer Championship. But we move back to the British Open in 1972. Lee Trevino, with a score of 6 under, would claim his 2nd straight Open title, becoming the first to successfully defend his title since Arnold Palmer in 1962, and would win 1 stroke ahead of runner-up Jack Nicklaus to claim his 4th of 6 majors. Moved to Major League Baseball in 1973, California Angels pitcher Nolan Ryan would throw his 2nd no-hitter of his career and of the season, defeating the Detroit Tigers 6-0. This no-hitter would come exactly 2 months after his first no-hitter, and on the day, Ryan, 9 innings pitched, 4 walks allowed, 17 strikeouts in the no-hitter. Back to the British Open in 1978, Jack Nicklaus, with a score of 7 under, would complete his 3rd career Grand Slam, winning 2 strokes ahead of runners-up Ben Crenshaw and Raymond Floyd to win his 13th of 18 majors. 1 year later in 1979, at the U.S. Women's Open in golf, Geraldine Britz, who would play an even par over the 4 rounds, would win her only LPGA major, 2 strokes ahead of runners-up Debbie Massey and Sandra Palmer. Back to Major League Baseball in 1980, Johnny Bench would hit his 314th career home run as a catcher, which would break Yogi Berra's record as a catcher. Overall, Bench would hit 326 as a pure catcher, good for 3rd place all-time behind Carlton Fisk and Ivan Rodriguez. We move back to golf in 1984 at the U.S. Women's Open. Hollis Stacy, with a score of 2 over, would win her 3rd U.S. title, 1 stroke ahead of Rosie Jones. This would also be her final of 4 majors in her career. Stay at the U.S. Open 6 years later, defending champion Betsy King, with a score of 4 under, would win 1 stroke ahead of runner-up Patty Sheehan. This would be King's 4th of 6 majors. Move up to 1991 and we have history once again. Santi Ortiz del Valle would become the first woman to officiate a men's pro basketball game in the USBL. This game would come between the New Haven Skyhawks and the Philadelphia Spirit. She would never get a chance to officiate in the NBA, but she paved the road for future referees. 8 years later, we move back to Major League Baseball in 1999, and the inaugural game would be played at Seattle Mariners, at the time Safeco Field, now T-Mobile Park. However, in that game, the Mariners would end up losing 3-2 to the San Diego Padres. 1 year later, in 2000, we have a world record attendance at a rugby game when 108,874 people would see New Zealand defeat Australia 39-35 in a Tri-Nations match at Stadium Australia. Back to golf in 2001 at the Senior Players Championship, Alan Doyle, with a score of 15 under, would win his 2nd Champions Tour major after he would hit a par on the first extra hole of a playoff with Doug Toole. We moved to football in 2007 at the Copa America final. Defending champions Brazil would win their 8th title with a 3-0 victory over Argentina. For Brazil, Julio Baptista would score in the 4th minute, giving them a 1-0 lead. Then Roberto Ayala would score in the 40th minute on an own goal, giving Brazil a 2-0 lead. Finally, Dani Alves scored in the 69th minute, giving them a 3-0 lead, one they would not look back on. Back to golf in 2012, at the U.S. Senior Open, Roger Chapman, with a score of 10 under, would win 2 strokes ahead of Bernard Langer, Fred Funk, Corey Pavin, and Tom Lehman. We moved to tennis in 2017 at the Wimbledon Women's Final. Garbine Muguruza would defeat Venus Williams 7-5, 6-0 to claim her 2nd Grand Slam singles title. 1 year later in 2018, at Wimbledon on the men's side, Novak Djokovic would win his 4th title, defeating Kevin Anderson 6-2, 6-2, 7-6. This would be the 13th of 17 majors for Djokovic. Also in 2018, Manny Pacquiao would stop the WBA welterweight champion Lucas Matthysse in 7 rounds for his first knockout in 9 years and his 60th career victory. Staying in 2018 at the FIFA World Cup final, France was going up against Croatia, and France would defeat Croatia 4-2 to claim their second World Cup title. Mario Mandzukic would start the scoring off, but the wrong way, scoring an own goal in the 18th minute, giving France a 1-0 lead. 10 minutes later, in the 28th minute, Ivan Perisic would score, tying it up 1-1, but then France would just go on a bit of a run. Before halftime, Antoine Griezmann would score in the 38th minute, giving them a 2-1 lead going into halftime. After halftime, Paul Pogba scored in the 59th minute, then Mbappe scored in the 65th minute, giving them a 4-1 lead. Mario Mandzukic would then score the right way in the 69th minute, cutting the lead 4-2. Too little too late. France would go on to win, get their second title. Finally, in 2018, at the Senior Players' Championship, Vijay Singh would get the victory with a score of 20 under after a playoff with Jeff Maggard. So there you have it. That's what happened on this day in sports history. If I left anything out, let me know down in the comment section. If I mispronounced any names, I do apologize. I hope everybody out there is having a great day. I will see everybody tomorrow for Nick Wire and the 10th inning. See ya.